Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining us. It is good to be with you again. Hello, Susanna.
Hi, Abram.
Today we will be talking about some pretty interesting things. So for right now, I will hand the running shoes to Susanna. She will put them on and run the race. Thank you.
All right, are you ready? Here we go. All right, we're going to be talking about grief today. Grief, we can experience grief with any kind of loss, whether that's the loss of a loved one, a job, finances, anything. It doesn't matter. When we feel that we have lost something, we can, not always, experience grief. Now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969 wrote a book on death and dying. When she moved here in the late 50s, she was appalled. She's a Swedish psychiatrist. When she moved here, she was appalled at how the dying people were treated in hospitals. In her book, she comes up with 10 to 13 different types of grieving or processes of grieving, but the 5 that we know about are the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. This was a model. It was not something that she expected to stay static. She expected it to change over time. And so she welcomed change to this model, but it was a model for us. And not everyone follows that model when they grieve. They can experience maybe 1 or 2 of the things, the 5 processes, may not experience any of them, may experience all of them. It is because grief is individualized and your emotions are individualized. Each person will grieve in their own way, even if people are grieving over the same loss. Now, animals grieve. Elephants are known to bury their dead because animals have a full set of emotions just like we do. They experience grief also. So do you want to take it from here?
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
There have been reports when a pet owner dies and is buried, the pet will lie on the owner's grave for days and days and days, and eventually die from a broken heart, just like human beings do. This is because animals not only have emotions like humans, but animals, especially dogs, and some varieties of cats, not all, but some, their consciousness is way beyond the human consciousness, far greater than your consciousness, human consciousness. And I keep telling people, if you have a dog, especially a dog, watch your dog, because you can learn so much from your dog that you probably or maybe do not know about reality. And this is because dogs don't count on time. They don't rely on time. Well, 9 o'clock, time to get ready to go to work. 12 o'clock, time to go and eat lunch. 6 o'clock, time to go home. And 9 o'clock, time to go to bed. They don't do that. They rely on their instinct. They have call it this, an internal radar, call it that. They simply know the timing throughout the day, not the time, the timing throughout the day. This is because they live in the moment only. And they are not concerned with 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and all the other clocks that you can imagine or muster up. If you were able to do the same thing, you would still be doing all of the things you do with your daily routine, but you will have so much more freedom. You would not know what to do with it. You would be confounded by all the freedom, because freedom confuses people. Well, if I have freedom, I cannot then wrap myself to a structure. I need structure. If you think you do, good. Maybe you don't need structure. And this applies for grieving also, because there is a structure to grieving and to grief. And all of those things Susanna talked about, those 5 stages of grief, they are all wrapped up into one eventually. And what happens is if you lose a loved one or a pet, you simply grieve, period. You don't think, well, I am grieving denial right now. No, I am grieving anger. No, you can feel anger, but you don't grieve the anger. It is present because in grieving, you deal with your emotions. So you will deal with denial, you will deal with anger, and all the rest. You will deal with them. You don't grieve them. You deal with them. You experience them because they are all a part of the grieving process. So when you grieve, if you lose a loved one or a partner or a pet, what really happens is the times you have spent together, your partner, a loved one, or your pet, after a time, you begin to assume a part of each other's identity. This is because, and you should know this by now, and I think you do know this by now, this is because there is always only energy. And everyone and everything is connected within energy and by energy. So yes, you are connected with your loved ones, you are connected with your pets, with your partner in your relationship, and you assume their consciousness and they assume a part of your consciousness also. So what happens is when you lose someone or something, you don't lose anything. You make room for gaining something else. And the loss is not from losing a pet or a partner or a loved one. It is because you lose a part of your consciousness. You grieve that, not the loss of your pet, because you know down deep your pet is fine wherever he or she has decided to relocate. And they just live on. And your loved one will just live on. And your partner will just live on after death. There is no dying. Nothing dies. Everything dies, but nothing dies. Because everything and everyone will just continue life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, in speaking of the 5 processes, someone could feel all of those things at the same time.
Absolutely.
Now, people have written that there is short-term grief, which is known as acute grief, and there's sadness and the loss of capacity for pleasure, insomnia, loss of interest in eating, taking care of oneself, and so forth, which can lead into depression. But short-term grief, and this is, I think, a question that a lot of people have, because at times grief and loss can feel like it takes on a life of its own, or it's its own entity.
It does take on a life of its own, and the individual becomes grief.
Another strange thing, which maybe it's unsettling more than strange, is that it will pop up. You may think you're getting better, you're dealing with everything, you're moving through your loss, and you feel pretty good, and then you can be anywhere. You can be out in public, driving your car, taking a shower, and it will pop up again.
This is how grief works. It will, as you say, wax and wane, get strong, and then go away, and hit you again and get strong, and go away again, and up and down, back and forth. This is how grief works. So the best thing you can do, and really the only thing you can do, unless you really fight grieving, which is not a good idea, best thing you can do is just, as you people say, roll with it. Let it do what it needs to do, because it is for your highest good. Everything works out to be. Everything works out to be. Everything works out to be for your highest good all the time. At times it might not seem that way, but when it doesn't seem that way, maybe it is really that way. Things seem to be too much of the time, because you people have a very good imagination, and you imagine things and create things that really are not real. And you think that they are real because somehow, somewhere within you, you need them. You need to experience the emotionality of those things. Same thing with grieving. You need to experience the experience of all of your emotions. Some days you will do that gently, some days you will do it harshly, some days you will not have to do it at all. It will come and go, come and go, come and go, until it decides it is complete within itself. Not done, but complete within itself. Because the grief will always stay inside you. It will always, no matter how long you live, it will always be a part of you. But you will not have to re-experience it. Unless you really want to, then you can. Thank you.
That was really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Prolonged grief or complicated grief is grieving over a long
Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
Short-term grief, long-term grief, interrupted grief, complicated grief. Everyone has to have a label for something or something else or everything. These are labels. These are labels. I always suggest to people, keep things simple, because simple works. Complicated does not work. So and you can do what you want, and you always do what you want. You don't have to do what I suggest, but for me, I always keep things simple. And I am so happy because things work when I keep things simple. I have complicated things, absolutely, but, well, that is another story, thank you.
Some people never get over a loss, and they will grieve for their entire lifetime. Is there a choice in that?
There is somewhat of a choice, but there is more so a recognition of what is taking place emotionally. Everything is emotion. Your universe is an emotional universe. You people are emotional beings. Dogs, cats, birds, insects, yes. All forms of life are emotional. All forms of life are emotional. Someone may feel as if he or she is grieving for his or her complete long life, all throughout life, to the end, until death. It might seem that way, but what is taking place is the emotions are trying to recreate themselves in a new way, in a different way, so that the individual can move on and not have to grieve for a long period of time. But if you are in grief and you are grieving about something or someone or a pet, and you are grieving for 3 years' time, go ahead. Grieve. Do yourself a favor. Don't choke your emotions down. Don't stop grieving. Well, I've had it. I cannot do this. I am done with it. Don't do that. Do this instead. I feel I am still grieving. I will just let it do what it needs to do, and I know that it will come to a close when it needs to, and everything will be fine all over again. But I will still miss my pet or my loved one or my partner, and that will last me a lifetime. But within the remembering of them comes all of the memories that I have of them. And those are the parts that I really want to cherish and keep inside of me and deal with and become. I want to become all of those. Thank you.
I don't have any more questions.
All right. Then I have this to say. if you are in the grieving process, grieve. Don't try to change it. Don't try to end it. People grieve about everything, literally. This is a part of life, physical life, and non-physical life if the individual chooses to become that way. You become your grief. This is what you do in life. You become your grief. You become your happiness. You become your love. You become all of your emotions. You become all of them. Because, here we go again, your universe is an emotional universe. You are emotional beings, animals, insects. Everyone has emotions, and everyone needs to express, understand, and realize and be realized within their emotions all the time. So go ahead and grieve. Grieve away. Just grieve and grieve and grieve until all of the emotions restructure themselves, and then the grief will come to a close and you will begin all over again, because this is what you do every time you quit grieving. You become all over again. You start all over again. You become new all over again. So do yourself a favor, grieve. Don't put a time limit on your grief. Well, you have been grieving too long. You have to get over it. I will get over you. Goodbye. Thank you for coming into my reality, but now I close the door on my reality, and you will be in your reality. Thank you. Do what you have to do, what you not have to do, but do what you can do for yourself. Do what you can do, not what you have to do, not what people say you should do, because they don't know you. They don't know how you feel. They don't know what you are experiencing. They don't know the experience of you. Be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And do what you have to do, what you need to do, and above all, what you can do. Until things change, because they always do. Susanna, thank you.
Thank you, Abram.
I will thank all of you. This has been fun for me. Even talking about grief. That can be fun. Anything can be fun, because it is all a game. So play it as a game, because I do, and I enjoy it. I've enjoyed you also. I love all of you. Enjoy your day, and we will see you again. Thank you.